Welcome back to the Standout Podcast. My name is Landon, and you are here joining us for part 4 and the conclusion of our 4-part series on fame, fortune, power, and money. Today, we're going to be covering the smallest topic. However, we're also going to be including a recap of the last couple episodes in here, just in case you missed out on it. Fortune is our topic today. It's simple in concept. However, it can be more complicated in execution, as we're about to find out through Adam. He's going to teach us and school us on different types of fortune. And we're going to have a great time. I am very happy for you guys to be joining us today. And sit back, relax, get yourself a drink, and let's roll.
All right, so as Landon said, I'm going to be talking about the different types of fortune. There are a couple of things that can be covered with that. Really, those things would be covered mostly by gambling and also fortune telling or seeing the future through other means. We'll go over both of those. First one, gambling. I personally don't recall reading anything in the Bible against that. However, I feel like there are multiple, sources that might be working against gambling, mostly in the fact that God is in control of the future and we shouldn't be trying to, randomize it by gambling, if that makes sense. Landon, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'm looking at some Bible verses right now. I'm looking specifically at Hebrews 13:5, Proverbs 13:11, and 1 Timothy 6. And what they're saying is basically gambling, the act of spending, the verbiage of it, which is putting money on the line, is not directly a sin. However, it's when you do that as your only source of income. So I'm thinking think about it this way: the difference between two different things. Say you're at like a buddy's house and you're just like, oh, I'll throw like a penny on, sure, why not, whatever, right? In like a poker game or something stupid like that. You know, it doesn't matter. It's 1 cent. It doesn't matter, right? That seems to be permissible. I know we're gonna fact check this as we keep going, and I'll mention this later. But it's when your soul, you're addicted to it, or you're chasing after it, and all you want to do to make money is gamble. That's a sin. That's bad. You don't want to do that. And what it is it's creating idolization in money and gambling because you're putting it at a higher place than God.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Just trusting in luck and however cards might fall or dice roll instead of what God has already planned out for you. And really, doing that, it kind of shows people where your priorities are. If you're gambling like those high stakes, as Landon was describing, it shows that you've put your trust in, or not your trust, it shows that you've put your hopes in an earthly treasure instead of the heavenly treasure that God has promised us, that being His Word and also the rewards that we will have in heaven, which we cannot even imagine on earth. So, yeah, it's definitely a form of idolization. And, it kind of ties back to our episode on money. It's the idol of money and just that desire for more.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Adam, so I don't know much about the kind of the fortune telling portion of this that's talked about in the Bible. Could you go ahead and explain some of that for us?
Sure. In short, the Bible says stay away from it because it is very offensive to God. And again, it goes back to what we said about gambling. You're trusting in something other than God and trying to plan in advance for the future. I'm going to read a passage out of Leviticus, and this is chapter 19, verse 31. It says, "Give no regard to mediums and familiar spirits. Do not seek after them to be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God. Very plainly, God says, do not seek after fortune tellers or the spirits and the mediums. And then he also says, Leviticus 20, verse 6 says, and the person who turns to mediums and familiar spirits to prostitute himself with them, I will set my face against that person and cut him off from his people. Being cut off from the nation of Israel was seen as, I would guess, the second highest form of punishment, that being just under the execution. So very serious sin against God. You're being cut off from the people of Israel. It's quite clearly condemned in the Bible to go after mediums and spirits. And if there, I guess what I'm going to say, if there's a rule in place against it, then it means that there is some way to do it. Now, I'm not one of those very intelligent scholars who can tell you for certain if fortune telling kind of just died out in the age of the early church. But even if the ability to do so still exists, the command that God gave to stay away from it still stands. So, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, I think a kind of a modern example that you can apply this to is something like witchcraft. And what I mean by that is, those people who are like, oh yeah, I'm a witch, and they just like wear dark clothes and stuff all day. Some of them might actually be one, and it's hard to describe exactly what is one, although I don't know about you, Adam, but I would consider anybody who tries or attempts some sort of dark arts regularly would be considered a witch, because they're actively working against God. But anybody who claims that they can do that sort of stuff, or like cults, everybody thinks they're not going to be in a cult until they actually join one. You can read some or listen to podcasts, read some books. Nobody expects to actually be in it until they're in it. So just be careful against that sort of stuff. It's not in God's will to be doing that.
So, talked a little bit about gambling and witchcraft. I know we didn't spend a whole lot of time on that. What I would like to say before we move on, though, is kind of the counter to that. And that would be just putting your trust in God and trusting in His plan. God is omniscient, omnipotent. He had a plan for everything before He even created the earth. So we should just trust in God to carry out His plans. I'm gonna read another verse, Romans 8:28, which Paul is saying that we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose. Now, if we are a Christian, if we're a child of God, then God's plan means good for us. Even the trials and the tough situations in life will lead to good for us. And we know that as His children, the ultimate good is when we get to go to heaven and spend eternity with God in His presence. So the plans that God has for us ultimately lead to good. Even if we may not see that good on earth, we know that it will happen in heaven. Instead of trusting in luck or witchcraft, just trust in God, and He's going to work it all out.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll put this into short before we continue on and kind of recap all these different messages we put together. So the main thing to do is with fortune, the goal is to not idolize something. With gambling, that would be money, or with witchcraft and fortune telling, that would be non-godly powers, as it would stand. Again, the goal is to not idolize anything. we are supposed to serve God, not anything else. All right, I think that wraps up a fortune. Adam, would you like to say any closing words, or are you good to move on?
Yeah, I think we're good to move on.
All right, great. Let's get on with it.
All right, everybody. That concludes the four things story or not story arc of episodes. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're gonna do a little bit of a recap over what the previous episodes talked about. Uh, we'll go in order of the episodes. So first up is money. Now, the main point that we wanted to convey with that episode is that money in itself is not inherently good or evil. It is a tool and not a possession. Now, we kind of need money to live in this world, but we shouldn't be so focused on getting and keeping money that it becomes an idol to us. We can't lose sight of the goal. We need to keep our eyes on God and not on the things of this world. However, talking about the things of this world, we have to be good stewards of what we do have in this world. As we read in the parable of the talents in Matthew 25, the good stewards were rewarded by their master, and the poor steward was punished. That is an analogy to us when we have to stand before God. If we are a good steward of our resources, the possessions that we have on earth, then we will be rewarded accordingly. If we stewarded it poorly, then we will be rewarded accordingly. We also talked a little bit about tithing, how it is not exactly a necessity. However, it is very, very highly recommended for Christians to tithe to their church. We made the point that we should tithe out of our gross income instead of the net income that we'll actually take home. It's a bigger sacrifice on our part. However, I feel like it would be more honoring to God if we gave out of the whole instead of part of it. Also, in that episode, we talked about how money cannot buy happiness. We had a little debate on that. Concluded that with the idea that money cannot buy happiness. However, it can lead to happiness if we are using money in a good way, such as giving to charity or to missionary funds. We can't let money become an idol. We can't become so focused on it that we lose sight of God. Now, as such an important factor in life on this earth, it is probably easy to become obsessed with money, constantly trying to get more, spending a lot of time figuring out how to spend it and all that. But we have to put our trust in God, make sure that we are, using our money wisely as good stewards. That can be most easily seen in the needs versus the wants. Now, we should not completely neglect our wants. However, our needs should take priority. And another point, we shouldn't spend money just because we have money. So that concludes the summary of that episode. I think Landon is going to move on and talk about fame.
Yes, of course. And, kind of a consistent theme we've had with all of these is the main goal is to not idolize these subjects. So with fame, which was our second episode, we talked about how we can use fame or popularity to our advantages as Christians. However, we should not have fame as our goal in mind all the time. Now, it is important to grow an audience, as we ask you guys to like and subscribe and comment, all that good stuff. So it's not bad, but you got to have the right intentions, and most people don't have the right intentions, which is where you got to be careful. We talked about how there's infamy and respect. With infamy, it's bad, especially if you're a Christian, because it brings shame upon a lot of Christians. If you're well respected and you have a lot of fame for being a good person and a good Christian, that's good. That's what we want. We don't want the other stuff. We also talked about the monetization of fame, especially with Christians, and how the funds are distributed, because money can be something that, like Adam was saying, it can go very bad very fast. And we have to be careful of that. When you're thinking of fame, the best thing to do is not think of yourself as the next Billy Graham or some sort of movie star who happens to be a Christian. Think of yourself as a person with a platform. Could be one person, could be 10, could be 100, could be 1,000. Doesn't matter. Point is, even one person getting saved is better than none. So make sure that you're not getting those numbers in your head, because at the end of the day, Christianity is about relationships, not numbers. I personally really liked the fame episode. I thought that was a great one. And Adam, do you want to take us into the power episode?
Yes. So that episode, we talked a lot about the authority that people have over you, the authority of God in our lives, and also the defining qualities of a good leader. Now, key points to focus on are the passage in 2 Peter chapter 1, which I touched on as being a good list of qualities that a Christian leader should have. However, those qualities are not limited to Christian leaders. They are for all Christians. We talked a little bit about some historical examples of bad leaders, mostly the kings of Israel, and also a few infamous leaders in World War II. Another key point is that all authority originates with God. I'm going to cite Romans 13, verse 1. All authority originates with God. All authorities are in place by the decree of God. So by disobeying the authorities, we are disobeying God. Now, we obey the government to honor God. However, we can't obey the authorities if they are commanding us to disobey God. In that case, our allegiance to God takes priority over our allegiance to our country. Another point covered, if we have the responsibility of authority, then we need to be really good stewards of it. We need to make sure that we are leading others in a way that honors God. We talked then about Christ-like leadership, how he humbled himself and did the dirty work. In the context, it was literally dirty work. He was cleaning, washing the apostles' feet at the Last Supper. Our leadership may not entail that. However, we are not to be above that duty if it does happen to. We have to be humble. We have to be ready to do the work. And I believe it was Landon said some of the qualities that define a good leader versus a bad leader were kindness, or compassion for others, the respect both for themselves and for others, and then also a vision, an overarching goal for what they intended to do. So we need to kind of follow those things. We need to be kind to people. We need to respect them, and we need to have some sort of purpose with our leadership. Now, that can be a complex vision that maybe only you can understand, or it could just be as simple as glorifying God.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're thinking of power, remember Uncle Ben from Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. Remember Tobey Maguire. And finally, this last episode that you are currently watching, Fortune. Not a long topic, not hard to do. Point is, same as before. Don't idolize something. If you idolize something, and again, that just means put it in a higher place than God. If you idolize something, that is a sin. That's bad. While gambling may not directly be a sin, the idolization of money or of luck is in fact a sin. We also talked about how witchcraft or fortune telling is not biblical. Now, that's not to say that the prophets were not biblical, because they were very obviously biblical, but they got their inspiration and their words from God, not from man or some other claimed force. Guys, I think that's it. I think we covered everything.
So the overall theme of these 4 episodes is to tell you that you cannot idolize these things: money, fame, power, or fortune. Now, overall, the goal is to trust in God, trust in His plan for our lives, and just walk in accordance with His word. We can't do that if we are idolizing any of these things.
If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or you'd like to just add to the conversation, please put it down in the comments below. We will respond to them as soon as possible. We check quite often. And while you're down there, go ahead and leave us a like and subscribe for the YouTube algorithm. You don't have to watch all the episodes, but if you could help us grow and expand the platform here, that would be great. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We're going to get started on our next couple episodes, and we can't wait for you guys to listen to them. Thanks, y'all, for being here. And Adam, any closing words?
Catch you around.
We'll see you guys later. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.